The blood of ancient battles rises. An eternal demonic war draws dangerously close to an end, threatening the balance of all existence. At the crux of this chaotic feud resides a legendary terror, fixated upon immortality at any cost. Only the most powerful heroes can hope to defeat a force that lies beyond the influence of the gods. G'day team, I'm Luke from Big Game Small Pieces, and I'm going to run you through a Dungeon Master's Guide to the Bastion of Broken Souls. It's a 3rd edition adventure for 18th level characters. It is a plane jumping adventure for high level creatures that, at the end of it, could end up with your characters being applauded by the gods. So what's this story about? Ashardalon is a great worm red dragon and wanted to achieve immortality without having to become a lich. So, during one of its fights, it was fighting a druid by the name of Did from the Church of the Four Elements. This is in the 7th level adventure, The Standing Stone. During that fight, the dragon killed Did, but Did struck a fatal blow against the dragon. This caused the dragon to have to get a new heart. The dragon used a demon as its new heart, and funny enough, they don't last forever. It wasn't an ideal choice for a new heart. Now the heart is starting to fail, and Ashardalon needs to find a new way to keep itself alive. And through its research, it discovered on the positive energy plane a place called the Bastion of Unborn Souls. Now Ashardalon is in there, drinking up all the brand new souls that are being created for the universe, which is causing problems on the mortal and other planes. Now here comes the confusing bit. The two-headed demon prince, the Demogorgon, wants to separate one of its heads off its body and survive the process, but it knows it won't survive if it just tries it. It has learnt, though, that if it can absorb Amet, the demon heart, from Ashardalon while cutting the other head off, it could survive the process. Starting this quest, if you've ran characters up to this level, first of all, well bloody done. You won't have nearly as many problems running this as someone who's just running it just as a single standalone adventure. If you are running this as a single standalone adventure, you're going to have to give your characters some time to figure out how to play test and how their abilities, spells, and equipment work. So I've got some options coming up for this soon when starting locations. But some other things to consider are going to be, let characters go wild. What does it really matter if they've got a +3 versus a +2 weapon by the time they get to these levels? They're going to be pulling huge numbers and some great big abilities and things. Remember, some characters can cast Wish and Miracle at this level. So things I'd be considering about would be giving the characters each a legendary item, a very rare item, 2 rare items, and 2 uncommon items. That amount of gear that these guys are going to be having, it just makes sense. Character hooks. The main one is that the Cathezar comes in and attacks the group and is going to say and do some personal things and deliberately go after them. And that's meant to intrigue the characters to try and track her down. Or, if she succeeds in her task, rescue their buddy. Another one is that children haven't been born with souls for the last 6 months, and all divination requests to try and find out what's going on haven't worked. So potentially your group could be trying to track down what is happening there and why aren't children being born with souls. And the final one might be that the group are actually hunting down Ashardalon or are on a quest for godhood, as their chance to pick up some divine sparks could work out in this adventure. Locations. This campaign is meant to take your characters hopping through the plains, or you could also just take it back to memorable places that the group really enjoyed, where these secret places were hidden. I like jumping through plains, so I'm going to be talking about jumping through the plains. And for your characters to start, you might also want to consider where they stand politically. Some of your characters might be the heads of kingdoms. They might be ruling mage schools. They might be the head of monk orders or the head of a church. So potentially these will also be great locations to start your campaign and start the first scene. But I chose the heroic plains of Ysgard, as it's a chaotic good plane which is basically like Valhalla. It's a reward for heroic characters who died in battle. And every day they get to go out and fight, and then every night drink up and celebrate. And anyone who died on the battlefield gets respawned the next day to fight, and they get 2 hit points around, just to encourage them to be heroic and be full of courage. So, great place to start. And I like this for 2 reasons. Number one, the characters can start getting used to their abilities if they haven't played these before, and which means they can stay there for a few days before you bring in the kicker that gets the campaign going. And the group can fight anything. Dragons, beholders, giants, whatever you want to throw at them could be passing through this plane to have a bit of a fight, and your characters can go up against them, testing out their skills. The other thing you can do here is it's a great way for your characters to rebond again. Every year your characters reform up and go to these places to meet up and with their dead companions who passed away heroically and get to drink and celebrate with them again. This is a great way to have a boys' weekend away, and your characters can get involved and tie in this way. And if they happen to die because they're still testing out their abilities, doesn't matter so much. They'll respawn again in the morning, even if you don't have a cleric. Another advantage of using something like this and getting some fights done before you get into the game is some character might be really sitting there itching to use Meteor Swarm or one of their high-level abilities. And if you let them use it here, they might get that out of their system. So when you want a role-play encounter or plan for a role-play encounter, and they decide, doesn't matter, they don't care, they're casting Meteor Swarm, you can at least get that out of their system before you start the adventure. Okay, getting into it. Scene 1, the Cathezar. In this scene, the Cathezar is to try to kidnap one of the players who is the descendant of Did. Decide this by picking one of your characters who hasn't had a moment to shine in the last few campaigns, or simply roll a dice if you don't want it left in your hands. From there, the Cathezar will try and take them, bludgeon them unconscious or kill them, and then teleport away. They have to be unconscious or dead, because if they are conscious, then they won't be willing to teleport with the Cathezar. So, once again, dead or unconscious, and the Cathezar can portal away. She'll portal in, start attacking ferociously the descendant, who the characters don't know who that is, and then she'll portal out. If this doesn't work, because she dies, being on the plane of Yizgard will help because she'll just respawn again. You can use her again, probably better the next time. Or, if she doesn't kill and capture one of the players and gets away, hopefully you make it personal enough that the characters think, oh geez, that was a lot more personal than the average dragon or beholder fight. We should probably find out why that person has such a grudge with such and such, and get to the bottom of this. A Death Slayer by the name of Nern, disguised as a human, also portals in and wants to team up with the group and gives them some information about the Cathezar. Nern works for the other head of the Demogorgon and has been tasked with keeping an eye on the Cathezar and what's going on. Now, Nern being a Death Slayer, I really struggled trying to get into what he was doing there and why he was even teaming up with the group. So I'd make a change. I'd change Nern into any other race and make it a warlock, with its patron being the Demogorgon. You can use Fiend as the template there, and I'd use Nern that way. You could even bring a player in on what's going on, give them some extra tips on what's going on the Demogorgon side of the story, and have them play Nern as this character. If that doesn't work for you, simple stat change, I'd change Nern to a Garistro, have him use something that has Nystal's mystical aura, and make him look like a Minotaur, and have him join the party as to assist them with that. Right, so Cathezar, you're going to have to build her in 5th edition. So first of all, she's a CR22, so I'd look towards the Ancient Bronze or Green Dragon for a guide as to what they should be doing. I'd also look at the Empyrean, that's a level 23, a CR23, and a Marilith, that's a CR16. Now remember, all the saves for these classes usually sit around 22 to 24, so that's roughly where you're looking for any of your saves. She should probably have stats at about 24, 22, 24, 20, 18, 22, thereabouts. The 250 hit points is about right, so keep that. The AC 35, if you want to drop that down for 5th edition, down to about 23 is about right for a CR of this level. Magic resistance definitely would have to be on there. Immune to spells of 4th level or lower. Regen 5 hit points around, I'd keep that. 20th level sorcerer, so give her an 8 spell casting, keep that. Give her 6 attacks with her +2 magical chain for +15 to hit, doing 2d8 + 9. Something along those sort of lines, with a tail attack of 2d10 + 7, with a grapple immediate success for to escape. Make that about 21 should be about the right DC. For the 20th level sorcerer, you want to give her spells such as, starting at the best ones, working my way down, like Time Stop, Power Word Kill, Teleport, Plane Shift, Delay Blast, Fireball, Globe of Invulnerability, Wall of Stone, Animate Object, Stone Skin, Greater Invisibility, Banishment, Lightning Bolt, Blur, Shield, Message, whatever you like, but roughly work off those sort of lines. For skills, you're probably looking at Deception, Perception, Stealth, Religion, Investigation, Insight. And for equipment, you're probably looking at a Ring of Blur, a +2 Cloak of Protection, Scrying Device, Braces of Exit, the Blood Mark, and of course her +2 chains. Scene 2, Gathering Information. There is a whole page dedicated to the use of spells and skills for how to track down the Cathezar if the group decide to do this in a number of different ways. So it's going to cover off spells, such as augury, commune, divination, contact other plane, commune with nature, legend, lore, scry. A lot of these have familiarity, so have an idea as to how the spell goes about getting its knowledge, and then I'm sure you'll be able to link it to the examples that are already given in the book. But I will go through some of the skills, and because we're going to have to change some of the DCs here, because 3rd Ed, 5th Ed doesn't convert neatly. So to get Did's Farewell through Bardic Knowledge, that's going to have to be changed from a DC 25 to a History DC 18 in 5th Ed. Ashardalon's name is going to have to be gone, was Bardic Knowledge, DC 33. We'll have to change that to a History, DC 24. The Druids know where the Church of Elemental, the 4 elements is. Keep that. That's no change there. Location of the Guild of Sleep. That was a Bardic Knowledge, DC 30. We're going to change that to a History, DC 21. It could also be Arcana if you're using it on another plane. Did Story was a History, DC 35. We can change that to a History, DC 26. The Ban of the Unborn. That is a Knowledge Religion DC 25. We're going to change that to a Religion DC 18. The Guild of Sleep knows about the Ban of the Unborn. That was a Knowledge Religion DC 25. That'll change to a Religion DC 18. The location of the Guild of Sleep. So this could be a Knowledge Religion DC 25. Or as Religion. Or it could be Arcana if it's on another plane. In which case that would be a DC 18. And more about the Bastion is known by the Guild of Sleep. This would be a Knowledge Religion DC 30 it was. We're going to change that to a Religion DC 18. Ashardalon was a powerful and had a cult. That was a Knowledge History DC 25. We're changing that to a History DC 18. And the Cathezar runs a spy network. That was a Knowledge Planes DC 35. It's now an Arcana 25. Now, down below, hopefully in the comments, I've put a conversion table, how to take 3rd Ed to 5th Ed. I've used 5th Ed and 3rd Ed stapled like numbers. They describe it as very easy, moderate, and so forth. And I've tried to align them. But you see, 3rd Ed started at 0 and went to 40, where 5th Ed starts at 5 and goes to 30. So there is a slight change in the table that I've had to best compensate what I can do there. Scene 3, the Cathezar's Abode. Now, this is a little mini dungeon for high-level characters. So this is something for the group to really just go wild on. The reason why it's here is so that the group can rescue their kidnapped mate or instigate a beatdown on her because she's gotten all up in their grill. By the end of this, the group should know they now need to continue on to the Guild of Sleep or to chase down the Church of the Elements, depending on which order they've been doing these things in. Location-wise, this could be on the same plane as the group started in, or in Yizgard, but I'd recommend taking it to somewhere else. Personally, I think the Plane of Fire and the City of Brass would be an excellent place to take this to, but it could be anywhere, so you choose. Either way, wherever you put it, you need to put the underground location somewhere where the group don't just want to meteor swarm the thing into the dust. So ideally put it under something else that she's hiding underneath. A hospital, an orphanage, something like that would be cool. Or potentially could just be the King's Guard or something like that, and then no one else can see it. Put an illusionary wall up over the door, the stairway going down into where it is, which hides her location. And when the group go in there, I'd keep most of the traps and things like that the same. So for room A1, no real change. For room A2, the cold trap works fine. Keep the 15d6 cold damage, dex save of 20 for half, or DC 27 to fine with, or 27 to disarm. And A3. The door lock set on the set that DC to about 30 should be high enough. The Nalfishni, now 3rd Ed to 5th Ed, they've got they have less HP in 3rd Ed, but their CR is higher in 3rd Ed too. Their attacks in 5e do more damage, and they've each got a cloak of protection +1. Just be aware of that. For A4, the Cathezar's room, keep the 23 chain attacks, but you probably want to give it a +10 to attack on each of them, knowing that they've only got 15 feet reach, I think. And they do 2d8 +8. You should hit most players most of the time if they just zip into that room, so shouldn't be too hard. To attack the chains, say an AC 15, 25 hit points with resistance to piercing damage, or if you're not worried about doing that, just give them 1 hit point, and as long as they engage 1 attack on each chain, they're then taken away 1 chain that can be used. For room A6, no change, don't worry about doing anything there. Now, if the group really want to just portal in, grab their buddy, portal out, why not let them? They've got all the powers in the world. If that's how they want to do this encounter, let them. If they don't want to fight, just leaves you the Cathezar to chase them down later with. If the Cathezar does get away, if she can't get away, she will dissolve into Ichor, which means she'll reform back in the Abyss in decades, centuries, whatever. That's not a big one. But at that stage, the Demogorgon will have known that the Cathezar has failed and will send Team 2 out. So that won't be a huge issue. And the Cathezar isn't permanently dead, since she'll reform back in the Abyss in some time. So she could come back later in other adventures or in other things if you still want to. Scene 4, Church of the Elements. At this point, this is mostly a roleplay scene and for a bit of a lore dump. They get to roleplay with a legendary tree, learn about the Descendant of Did if they don't already know about it, and the powers that they will gain from being the Descendant of Did. They'll also get some more information on Did and Ashardalon and what happened, and be pointed, eventually by the end of this, pointed to the Guild of Sleep if they haven't already been there. The location could be a foothold anywhere on the material plane, or anywhere you need it to be. I like having it at the central of multiple things, like it's a doorway to places. This could be potentially the center between all the inner planes. So once you walk into the circle of stones, you can look out at each of the cardinal directions and see a different element owning that area out there, or potentially could also be off to the Feywilds. These are all fantastic places that your group can set up. So go magical, go high fantasy, and just see what you can come up with, something that will astound your players. For Doris, I use the Archdruid from Volo's Guide for playing her, and remember that she's in a very respected position as she translates for the tree. She will be peaceful, neutral to the group, and they're going to think that she's the info giver until they see that she's actually getting her information from the tree and translating. The tree is called Symphelin, but I call it Symphelion because it just rolls off the tongue a little easier, and that's how I ran it. Now, if the Cathezar or the demons are hunting the group down, this is a great location for the group to stand back and watch the tree ants just wail on these demons, while potentially a portal is open for the group to escape and run away to the next location from inside the Druid Stone Circle. For your Dire Tiger, that was easy enough to find some stats online. It's not really there to do heaps of damage, so I wouldn't be too concerned about the Dire Tiger unleashing on the group, and this whole scene should ideally be roleplay and not so much combat. Scene 5, the Guild of Sleep. The point of this scene is to have the characters catch up on some information, have a fight with Dreamer Prime, and then find out that they need to go get Desayeus as he's in his prison, because his divine spark is the key they need to get into the Bastion of Unborn Souls. The location of which I thought would be perfect for Sigil. But if you don't want to go plane hopping around, then potentially Neverwinter, Baldur's Gate, any of the big cities will do. Now, due to portaling around the place so much, the group are highly likely to take rests whenever they need them in and out of these combats, especially when one fights on one plane and one fights on the next, or even in different towns and areas. So there's little reason why they wouldn't have long rests. Even if you take into consideration that kids are being born without souls, they waited 6 months. What's an extra couple of days going to do? So my characters and I didn't really see the drive, so the characters are going to be full rested for these encounters, so don't worry about throwing things at them. For C1, inside here, everyone's full in here are commoners. The sleep golems are iron golems, and that will work just fine in 5th edition. And I'd have their sleep spray, about a DC 15 for the wisdom there. That'll stop them from being put to sleep. Also to consider, now is the perfect time to have a dream sequence. If the characters wish to partake in dreaming like everyone else doing in this area, they could all partake in a lucid dreaming environment. This would be a perfect way to get to the astral plane for a short period of time. The characters could have a quick space adventure on a spelljammer. They could take on Githyanki pirates while floating around space, or, even better, take on an astral dreadnought. When is the next time they're going to be a high enough level to do something like this? So damn yeah, bust out that monster on them and let them have a fight. That'd be really, really cool, and something totally different, fighting 3D in the astral plane, so something to challenge yourself with as well. Alright, so C6. Here's where things start becoming tricky, as Dreamer Prime knows the answer that the heroes seek, but is unable to give it unless she's woken up. So the characters come across Dreamer Prime floating there in a dream projection, but she directly says, "I'll only answer such questions if awakened, but the dream is too dear to give up. I'll fight you if you attempt it. Leave immediately." This makes very little to no sense to explain why she won't tell them and why they've got to fight her, but she doesn't want to fight and she won't want to get woken up. It makes no sense. And it really struggles to figure out why are we doing this? So we need to fix this. My suggestion is Dreamer Prime goes into dream states for big blocks of time, months at a time. And while there, she investigates and learns as much as she can, but she can't retain any of it in her dream state. It goes back to her body. When she does wake up, is then her to just lay it out, data dump, and she organizes all these scribes to be there and just write down everything she tells them. She could be researching spells, she could be tracking down information, she could be gathering stories, doing whatever she's doing. For this particular one, she's not ready to be woken up, and she's going to need another couple of weeks, like 8 weeks or something like that, to be ready till she's ready for everyone to be woken up and everything gets recorded and she doesn't lose everything that she's gained. Because let's just say she's trying to work on a new spell she's trying to put together. So potentially the group are going to have to fight her to wake her up if that's the way they want to go with the adventure. This could be roleplay, but it also could be a really cool fight with some of the things going on, such as the dream-winged Triceratops was really cool to fight. So during the fight, if they decide to fight Dreamer Prime and go down that way, and you're happy to take them that way, consider all the Dream Tigers, and that's doing strange things. They make them strange colors, make their bodies weird, have them have strange dream attacks, such as cast an insect plague and it all comes out of one of the tiger's ears and attacks the group. Or one stands up and fights upright and uses stunning fist on the group and things like that. Have another one that just constantly sits there, no matter how they look at it. He's sitting there reading a paper or something like that, and he looks at them and keeps saying, "You missed my birthday." Just give them a total psych out of things that are going on as in weird and strange dreams that Dreamer Prime can call up and put upon the group. Make them cast a fireball, but instead of fireball, it's 120 feet of fall damage, taking 12d6, unless they've got slow fall or fly to take no damage. Make it weird things. And when the tigers do physically attack, maybe it's tongue attacks, or they've got a scorpion tail that comes out of nowhere, or they get extra mouths in their bodies that take all the chomps and bites as they come up to people. Make it really weird dreamy when they're fighting her. For Dreamer Prime, you're going to have to look for some stats for her. Remember, she is a hag, but I found the Lich stats were probably pretty good for her for 5th edition. Just take away some of the undeadness of it all, as she's still a living creature at this point in time. Pick spells are going to suit your encounter off the original list provided in the book. And use Dreamer Prime powering up the battlefield and building up the tigers and sleep golems and all that other stuff to attack, as she's not trying to attack, so it should be a big fight for the group. For the Triceratops, the normal Triceratops is fine. Give it a fly speed, give it some ghostly resistances to non-magic weapons and elements, immunity to sleep, fear, charm, poison, stun, that sort of thing. Now, when the group do make it into C7, the Lotus Poison should be a con save of DC 17 for 9d6 poison damage, and reduce maximum hit point damage taken. That'll have to be fixed with a greater restoration to restore those max hit points as well. To find the trap, you're looking at about a DC 18, and disarm with tools, you're probably looking at DC 23 for that one. Now, Dreamer Prime is an old hag or witch-like thing, and her projected image is a beautiful lady. So when the group actually do get to meet Dreamer Prime, make her physically a very ugly looking person. She projects her inner beauty, but her outer ugliness is very present. She's unsymmetrical, she's balding, she's slightly disfigured, she's warty, she stinks because she's been laying there sweating and things like that, like traces of urine, sweat stains. Like, it's not enjoyable to be around her, and a very two sides of the coin sort of thing. Very different when she meets the group in real life. Scene 6, Desayeus' prison. The intent of this scene is to expose the group to make an ethical decision for the greater good, being that kill an angel and a fallen god so they can continue the mission. This can be a great ethical quandary to pose to the group, but the adventure only has one solution: that kill the obviously good people. So what can we do about that? Well, By the end of this, the group need to be in possession of Desayeus' divine token, as it's required to get access to the Bastion of Unborn Souls, but Desayeus won't willingly part with it, and Desayeus can't leave the prison. The location of this is done in Pandemonium, which could also be swapped out with anywhere in the desert or somewhere where people can't easily access and get to. In Pandemonium, read up on its top layer, Phantasmos, the third layer, Phlegethon. Both have interesting locations such as the Madhouse, Winter Hall, Windglum, and the Citadel of Slaughter. Pandemonium is on page 62 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and a DC 10 Wisdom save are required hourly versus exhaustion while being there. Now, meeting Echo. Their Planetars are the same CR as they were in 30, but Solars have increased their CR by 2. Shouldn't be a huge issue for the group. This is another ethical encounter. The angel has been tasked by a god not to let anyone in, not even another god. So when a mortal rocks up, Echo just says, no, I'm lawful good. I've been tasked with this. Love to help, but I can't. I've got my orders. This can bring a whole campaign to a stop. For Echo, I used them as an angel of Helm, the god of guardians, the vigilant one, and the watcher. The adventure tries to paint you into a corner here, as the band of the Unborn stops gods from interfering with much at this point. So what do? My team decided to cast an illusion spell on themselves, as angels don't have true sight in 3rd edition, but they do in 5th edition. So what do you do if the group don't want to kill an angel? I'd remove true sight from the angel and give the group the ability to at least try trick Echo into allowing them passage through, and see what the party can come up with. There's got to be something other than just simply killing. I mean, it can be the most obvious thought, like, oh, geez, we've got to kill this good guy, but it shouldn't be the end of it, particularly if the group are going to take a hard stance on this. Once inside, we get into the band god, Echo 1, or E1. Inside, we've got Liliendes. These are telltales and chroniclers, gatherers of lore, recorders of stories in the forms of epic poems and songs. And these ones have been stuck in jail for a long time. They've had no outside muses or influences, and so they've probably used up all their own internal creativities, and they've been stuck in there for centuries. So there's a good chance that these guys are going to be a little unhinged and have potentially gone through creativity through destruction, and now aren't quite everything they used to be. When the group do come in, these Liliendi are going to be very keen to get anything they can from them. Outside stories, new music in the last century, anything the group can offer, these Liliendi will give them everything they can. They're full and other attention. So show the rooms when you're walking through there is being destroyed. Show these Liliendi as being unhinged. Potentially they're just laying there in the dirt making dirt angels, or laying there in spilt dried paint that's long ago dried. They're sitting there just smashing anything, trying to find anything to amuse them or give them some sort of inspiration. So they're going to be very unhinged. Make it kind of sad, funny. You know, maybe they're crying while sitting there punching each other. Maybe they're stuck in a trance-like state, chewing on their fingers. Maybe they're very melancholy. Maybe it's still sitting there playing broken instruments that don't make noise. Little unhinged, little strange, because they've been locked up for a long time. For Echo 5, where E5, where Desayeus is, this was set up to be a combat encounter. And this works fine with a Liliendi joining in. It could also be a prison break. Desayeus will not part with his soul totem, as I've talked about before, as it is his last part of his divinity, and he doesn't want to give that up. He wants to get back into the divine circle, not give it all up. So full RP encounter could be from him, and if you really like going down that way, potentially maybe he does just give it up if a group do an astounding roleplay session. Or they could do a jailbreak, which was what my group did. So, but freeing Desayeus is going to be a challenge. The magic that keeps him in the prison will detect Desayeus trying to leave the portal, and his divinity needs to be hidden. Some solutions might be put him in an extra dimensional space, Cover it with Nystul's Mystic or Magic Aura, upcast like level 9 spell, Religion, Arcane checks, as well as pumping a couple of level 9 spell slots into the portal to adjust it and mechanically change the magics, or using all of those things to hide him, cover him up, adjust the portal, and sneak him out. So using this recombination will just whatever your group comes up with. If it's creative, it's the right answer. Flow on effects is Desayeus is going to throw off every combat encounter from now on. He will just come charging in and wallop everything. He's got spells, he's got everything, and he will throw off everything. But in saying that, your group will remember the time where they teamed up with a fallen god and fought their way through things. So Desayeus, quite cool. Some things I would definitely consider are you've got a lot on your plate. Let rotate through. Let players get to play Desayeus as well as their character and rotate around who gets to have a go if they want. Really cool, literally powerful, and they get to enjoy running around doing that. For his stats, you're probably going to look up an Empyrean and then throw on the Archmage spell slots on top of that. Adjust some of the spells and the slots as needed, but that's probably the good stats that you need to run with at this stage. The only other thing that isn't mentioned is what Desayeus was the god of. And for me, it was a very plain one to consider. What isn't there a god of at this stage? And I just went with, there's no god of humans. Desayeus was the god of humans. Part 2, Scene 1, the positive energy plane. The positive energy plane, we're here because Ashardalon is here in the Bastion of Unborn Souls, and it's got to be somewhere special where souls are created. So if you haven't been using planar travels around that, you're going to have to maybe make this a little bit special. If you have been planar jumping around, positive energy plane is a perfect place for this to be. We needed the key from Desayeus to get into the Bastion, so we have that hopefully by now. Time to experience a unique environment that is not meant for people. Now this plane is such a interesting and fun plane to play on. It adds a whole nother dynamic to fighting that characters can muck around with and makes it a lot more engaging. So it sounds like it's safe, because while you're there on the positive energy plane, you increase by 5 hit points every round. And you're going to keep doing this all the way up to double your maximum hit points, at which point you've now got to start making constitution saves versus exploding from having too much energy welling up inside of you. Your group are going to want to exploit this big time, so make sure that they're aware that they don't know numbers. They just know how it feels. So I would simply potentially record how they feel about things. While you describe, they become more full of energy. They become caffeinated. Their veins start swelling. Their red skin starts going red. They start feeling too energetic, and they're probably going to be assumed like, yeah, that'll stop. That's where I'm going to stop healing myself and start hurting myself and keep me about there. Where I put that for my group was somewhere around about 125 to 140% their maximum health. Because if characters think they can just go around sitting round about the 200% health, because why not, why can't I? You'll show them when you heal them and they explode. So if you're going to use healing as attacking, which my cleric did, he started healing some of the bad guys to make them explode here instead of damaging them. Know that all cure spells are maximized on this plane. And it's actually a will save, I think, to resist receiving the healing from these things. So potentially people are going to have to watch exactly where they sit for taking damage. While on this plane, it is so extremely bright and full of radiant light, they're going to have to go, they potentially could go blind. So they're going to also have to protect their eyes and come up with a method that's going to stop them from overhealing. Now, yes, they can sit there and just keep stabbing themselves in the leg constantly, but they still feel pain. So people are going to get frustrated with this, and you can't rest if you're sitting there stabbing yourself in the leg and twisting a dagger around. You can't rest like that. So the group have to come up with something. Magic has a way of dealing with it, and that just removes the problem by giving protection versus the element sort of thing. There is a spell specifically for this. That's okay. I think the group would find it a lot more interesting to start with their first guess, which is just going to be stabbing themselves. And then potentially they can also find the rings that the demons have on that constantly keep biting, causing constant blood leaching damage. So that's another way to go about it once they get a little better, unless they've got someone who can come up with a better plan. And then eventually they can even find a spell to remove this once the boys have had enough time enjoying these abilities. Gravity here is also subjective. You choose which way you're going to fall, so potentially the group have to figure that around. I would consider adding a random encounter here in space in a 3D fight, flying around some big creature that happens to have popped over this plane for a short period of time before it pops back out again. And with its extra increased hit points as well, it'll be one really cool fight to have for the group to try something different. If you're looking for that sort of thing, you might want to homebrew something. Potentially a Kraken got banished here and then came across the group and has decided to start fighting them. Heaps of things they could do. Saves versus death are with advantage here. And so the group has a lot of survivability going for them. So you can throw big things at them here. One thing I wouldn't do in the random encounters is throw anything like demons or red dragons at them, because they're going to get heaps of that at the Bastion. So don't worry too much about doing them. Throw something big at them that you've been dying to unleash and unload. An Arcana DC 16 was probably a good check for wizards to realise the hazards of this place before going there, or any other person trained in Arcana. The group should now be approaching the Bastion of Broken Souls. And this is set up to be a big high-level dungeon crawl. What the group have to do is go through every area to attune to it, and then they can go into the centre to fight Ashardalon. This can be a bit of a problem, as it just becomes a forced dungeon crawl. So I would consider watching your group and making sure they're paying attention. With the extra hit points, everyone could be these fights could become just big slogs. So some people might stop enjoying it. That said, most rooms are kind of bland. They're kind of the exact same thing. It's just different bad guys to fight. We finally get to go against Energons, and we're up against a lot of demons. So you might have to be looking at ways to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit dynamic, as all the rooms are pretty much the same. It's just different bad guys. Here's some things to consider adding to the rooms. Now, don't necessarily add all of these, and add the ones that you think are good. Basically, if you want your group to get more involved with this sort of stuff, it's got to actually be effective and useful. Like this first one I thought about is adding stalactites to the roof, crystalline stalactites up in the roof. But if your barbarian has to go to the trouble of throwing his axe to knock one down and it comes down and only does like 2d10, your barbarian's headbutt's probably doing more damage than that. So these should be damage multipliers or damage enhancing things. So it should definitely do more than the attack was worth if he's taking the gamble to try and make it happen. So think of considering adding stalactites, and they can be added anywhere in all the rooms if you so choose. Think of adding a ravine or a chasm with uneven crystal bridges lodged across it. Not perfect bridges cross from one to the other, but an uneven crystal bridge. And then as soon as a couple of characters get on the bridge, it breaks and dislodges, but then lands and re-lodges again. The characters all slide down and have to make balance checks on not falling off and going into the ravine, and then have to continue slowly making acrobatic checks across the bridge to make sure it doesn't dislodge and fall again, if movement on the ground is still a problem for your team. Spinning winds. Consider adding a dynamic effect of spinning winds inside one of the rooms. So on initiative counts 10 and 20, characters must make a strength check. You set the DC, something not too high, as not everyone's going to be good at it. And then if they fail, they move 10 feet anti-clockwise in a spiraling fashion, slowly moving away and out and around. This can move people, monsters, and all sorts of things around the area, which will make the whole fight that much more engaging and memorable. Consider having a frictionless room. Winds have polished the crystal so smooth and to such a high level where it's now frictionless. So once a character starts moving, they've now got to make an acrobatic check to see if they can maintain standing still or fall prone. And regardless, they're still going to keep now moving their speed in that exact same direction until they hit another object and can push themselves off to go into another direction as they slide across the battlefield trying to catch each other. Add automatic movement to some of the characters. If I approach it planning on doing 30 feet, I will then continue doing that speed 30 feet until I come across something else, a crystal tree or a bad guy that I can hit and bounce off and rectify and bounce and slide around the room. Consider having simple platforms. The dungeon is just shown as being big open rooms. Add some platforms to add some height for people to jump up, climb down and around and such, just to give it something simple. These don't have to be the same room over and over again. You can make them better. Consider having explosive healing streams, potentially just bursting through the area. Hits of positive energy that are just going to hit everything in the path. This could be healing, or it could be radiant damage, whichever you feel is going to affect your group the most. Or you could roll and it could change depending on which type of energy is going to come at them. Also consider the ground potentially and walls are thinner crystalline than other patches because they've been eaten out below or by something. And as the characters walk on it, potentially they break the crystal and fall down onto broken crystal shards. So you can have pit traps randomly wherever you need them across the battlefield. Here's a good one. Have a crystal in the middle of the room or an area, and a source of energy from below it keeps radiating, pulsing waves of energy that the crystal then focuses and shoots off in different directions. Roll a d12 and use the clock ray for a reference, and then have it burst off at different directions and hit people with either damage or healing. If they decide to break the crystal because they're trying to be smart, that energy source is going to go up and hit the roof and now randomly reflect down in different patches all over that area. And finally, the place is still full of radiant energy surging and bursting forth. So raising and lowering platforms. Get a d10, roll it, and that could be the height the platform goes to in increments of 10 feet. You roll an 8, 80 feet, it's now up in the air. And you can have multiple of these platforms raising and lowering, changing the fact that if you're on the same platform as someone else, so you're going to leap down to the other one, it comes up at you, or bounce around. Make it dynamic so it becomes engaging and something more memorable than just a flat field with some crystalline trees amongst it. If you don't like the D8, roll a D6 and it won't go up quite as high. It'll only go up about 60 feet up and down as they bounce around and move about. Have like at least 3, if not 6, not too many, it'll get too confusing. These 20 by 20 sort of hex pieces that just keep coming up and down all over the place. Little things like this will make all these fights that much more interesting and engaging and stop the players from just realizing these are just big hit point slogs of us being super hit pointed up and them being super hit pointed up and having to surge our biggest things and having to keep rest between rooms and then just keep surging and doing this sort of stuff. If the group do decide to rest inside these things, Enagons are the best thing to hit them with random encounters, as their hit point damage from max HP or con damage, depending on how you're going to do it, is the best way, but we'll get into them when we come to them. So, for F1. So F1 is the balcony. It's the area before going in to the dungeon. Now, the dungeon originally and gravity returns to normal, so the characters will fly down or fall down here and land, and then after that it's back to gravity as normal here. Another one you could add would potentially be random bursts of reverse energy come up in one of the rooms as well. That'd be a good one to add. So originally in this one, you've got Forglabrizu, which were CR 15 in 3rd. They're down to CR 9. So you might want to swap them out with Garistros. You've got Hezra, which was a CR 14 down to 8. So you might want to swap that one with the Nalfeshni. And the Nalfeshni, which was a CR 16 down to 13, you could swap that out with just a standard Marilith. And the Retriever is the large metal construct bug. I would reskin a dragon turtle and change the breath weapon to eye rays that mimic what it had in the 3rd edition. At this point, this is also your last chance for the Cathezar or the 3 Belors of the 2nd string to come here and fight. I wouldn't bring them in that first fight. I'd let the group solve that. And then particularly if they're taking their time trying to figure out the door and muck around or plan on taking a long rest before they go in, come and have this team come in and attack them. My group decided to run from them instead of engaging and fighting because they'd had enough of that and they knew they had a lot more ahead of them. But that basically forces them from the fight out there to the fight back inside. Because once the group are inside, those demons, be it the Cathezar or the 3 Bellows, can't get in. They don't have a key. For F2, you're now inside the Bastion of Unborn Souls, and perception and sound is now at a disadvantage because of all the trees inside chiming and how bright it is in there. And this is a method of making sure that, you can't hear the room next door, so they're all kind of isolated and the group can make plenty of noise. So it's a safety feature built in for the group to be able to do that. Right, so the correct solution for you might be to sit down and redesign these 4 creatures that are in this F2 But you're doing a lot of work at this stage, and we're looking for easy answers that'll get us through. By all means, design your own creatures here, and I might do it later and post them down below in the doobly-doo, but for the moment, I'm just going to reskin a few things to make it easy. So for Poe is a half-dragon Cobalt CR20. So Poe's really just a good fighter. So I had a look around for something that could be a good fighter, and I decided the Pit Fiend is probably about as close as I can get it for that CR. So you probably also... Poe isn't a Pit Fiend, so maybe half his HP and make him small, obviously. Remove the Fear Aura and immunity to sleep, paralyzation and such. And the Pit Fiend resistances, and give him the Dragon resistances for his half-dragon nature, to fire and things like that. And that should just about make him alright. He's not meant to be a big powerhouse as such. Maybe give him a Fighter's Maneuver. For Crusher, you're looking... He's a half-dragon Enten Barbarian. So he was a CR18. Give Crusher the Iron Golem stats of a CR16, and then give him rage abilities. At this level, he can probably have more rage abilities than what he'll ever use. So just give him rages that he can go into, and then use those stats, and you should be pretty good, pretty on the mark there. For Thalidorius, the Advanced Chimera, was a CR15. Basically what I did there is I took the stats of a blue or green dragon, they're about the right CR, and then just swapped the breath weapon to the right element. And so he's breathing fire again. It's probably about it. Make sure he's got those 3 attacks for the 3 heads, and you're probably on the mark there for what you need to achieve for him. And for Grizzly, who is an Advanced Dire Bear Half Dragon, CR17, you're probably once again looking towards that Dragon Turtle, but shrinking him obviously to the correct size he should be, and replacing that breath weapon with a fire breath weapon because of his half-dragon natures and those resistances that go with that. You're probably on the mark there. For F3, that's just a description of hallways and things like that, and running into the light. I had a character who just took off from 2 and just ran straight forward after Poe. Poe knowing that he was retreating, and the other character ran straight after him, and I just rolled the dice to see where they come out, because no one ever runs straight when they can't see. And he ended up rolling and managed to come out at F7, so directly across from him, I think, and managed to force the next encounter there. So that's fine. Easy enough to use. For F4, we start getting to, if they haven't already encountered through random encounters, Enegons. Enegons aren't in 5th edition yet, and they are energy beings. They don't have physical bodies so much, so they're a little different. They don't have strength stats because they don't have a physical body. First one here is the Soul Sippers, and I've made up some stats that I'm hopefully throwing up now. It's a multi-dorsal fin fish that float through the air. These creatures are dangerous in the way that they give off too much life energy, and they eat life energy. It's what they are on this plane. Now in 3rd ed, these did reduced con, and there are a few things in 5th ed that do that. But if reduced con is difficult for you, I've written up the stat blocks as if it's reduced max HP. If you want to go back to reduced con of 2d4 or 1d4, then go with that. But remember, changing people's hit points will also change how much they've got, and could affect how before they pop, basically, in this plane. So it is another dynamic feature to add to this. And my characters grew to fear these things more than the other stuff, because how long it also takes to heal this. These are the ones that really do the damage to the team, these Enegons. In F5, this area goes on and on and on. All right, so this is just going off into the depths of the Bastion. My group weren't interested. They knew what they had to achieve, and they weren't interested in more hit point slogs than they didn't want to invite on. If your group are interested, it's a great way for placing more encounters out there with Enegons and such. And there's also the half-dragon bard out there. If you can find him, I believe he is a bit of a role-playing counter and can give you some lore. But my characters weren't too interested in there. And if your characters aren't enjoying this so much, or if you want to add a few more these random encounter wall that I suggested for making the combat more dynamic, I'd definitely consider putting them out there. F6 is the Demon Guard Post. Now, this was a cool fight. We're going to have to change some things potentially, because your 6 for Rock went from a CR13 to a CR6, so they're not carrying quite as much the punch as they were. And you could swap them out with Nalfashni with Rings of Flying. And and grant them some wands that they can make their ranged attacks from, which is the advantage of why the Vroks are up there. So that'd be one way to quickly switch them out and arm the group up with rings of flying and wands after the fight in case they didn't have enough of that stuff already. You had 2 Glabrizu who were CR 15. They're down to a 9 in 5th Ed, so you want to probably switch them out with Mariliths. And you also had 2 Baelors of CR 18. Now, 5th Ed, they're CR 19, but your group hopefully have already had their fill of the Cathezar and the second team, those Baelors. So, for simple variety, not worrying too much about the storyline, but just fighting something cool at this high level that haven't fought before and probably won't get the chance to fight again, you might want to consider adding a Sibrix from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, or an Amnizu from Baldur's Gate Descend to Avernus, if you want a little bit more variety in your demonic bad guys to fight. F7 is fine. You can use the Adult Red Dragon stats for the dragon there, but for your Cleric, Myra, it's very hard to find high-level Cleric stats for NPCs. So I had to turn to Volos and use the War Priest out of it. Now, she's meant to be a little bit tougher because the CRs are 9 there. So if you gave her a +1 shield, setting her AC to 21 and giving her 140 HP instead and a 6th level spell for heal or some such, you're probably rounding her out to roughly where she needs to be. And if a character needs a +1 shield at this stage, well, they probably should already have had one, but here's some extra gear for them if they need it. F8. All right, we're back into Enegons again. So you've got Soul Marauders here, which are flying manta rays. We had one that did come in, and I've done the stats up for them, hopefully for you on screen now. So we had one pull the soul out of one of the characters and then try and take off, and it was a chase because you've got 1 hour to get that soul before it's consumed. So it was chasing down that Enegon, killing it, and then getting the soul back into the player's body again. Look on page 252 of the DMG for rules on this if you don't normally run chase scenes, or just be creative and come up with your own how to chase it down and weave through crystal trees as the thing can just go straight through them and take off. F9, the Crystal Screamers. These are large worms, and my group really wanted to ride the damn thing, so why not? They're of a level. If it's what they want to do, let them ride the thing. Go underground and get dragged through and then let go and get stuck underground. And then the group had to cast a locate spell to find him and then shift the earth to get back down and pull him back out of the earth as he was being crushed under it. So, really creative, really something different. These creatures, by the stats, don't leave tunnels, but otherwise there'd be tunnels for the whole place that the characters could possibly use, might raise more questions. But, if your characters want to do it, why not? Well, they're here, let's get them doing something interesting. If it's what they want their adventure to be, they're telling you, I want to ride these things through a tunnel, let's go ride these things through a tunnel. Failing that, also try and devour people. I've had one paladin in one of my campaigns who just kept getting devoured by everything he could come across, and it just became a mental thing for him that he didn't want to get devoured anymore. So consider adding something like that to the group, as getting devoured might be something a character hasn't done before. In F10, we've got the Peaceful Grove, and this is pretty much there to give the characters dragon slaying and protective equipment. It comes off very obvious as just like, here's some stuff. But if you realise the group haven't gone out and gone shopping and got rings of resistance of fire, armour, weapons of Dragonbane, all that sort of stuff, here is now your chance to leave it on this this left paladin. In which case, it does actually make sense. Like, if I was coming to kill Ashardalon, I should have been wearing all this sort of stuff. And if I got here and got killed by, I believe, an Enegon, and had my soul ripped out of me, and then I was just left here, then, of course, all my gear is going to have stuff to go up against fighting red dragons. So, it does make sense. But if you don't want it, just take it away and ignore the room. And finally, now that the group have done this, they should now feel they're attuned. You can reduce the amount of rooms, you could add more of them. If you just want to play like the highlight of rooms, then tell the group they've attuned, you've been here for 2 hours, and that was long enough, you're attuned, you can now enter. Then do that, because just watch the group. If they're not enjoying the fight, then obviously let's change it up and bring on the big bad guy. For Ashardalon, consider what Ashardalon can offer the group instead of being attacked. Like, if the group come in and this dragon knows they're out there because he can sense them and can sense their attunement, then what is the dragon going to offer them? They're obviously powerful. They're obviously a threat. Then potentially, why wouldn't we bargain and try to get something out of them from that? So consider what Ashardalon would offer the group in terms of things such as eternal life with the dragon here in the Bastion, where the group can sit there and study and try and learn how to achieve godhood, and then can then go out and do it. They've got the parts of the Desayeus' divinity. They potentially just need a little bit more, and they can quest from here and live on their lives, and Ashardalon would try and sell them this. Ashardalon probably also has the secret to lichdom, and one of the characters could take away the recipe and then start working on how to become a lich. Ashardalon has chosen not to take this path, but he potentially knows how to achieve lichdom. So he can try and tinker with it to try and do it himself, and then realize, no, I'm gonna end up a lich no matter how I look at this, and just chose not to. But a player might be happy to. This is also one of the biggest red dragons in the whole game. And so what type of treasure hoard would Ashardalon have back on one of the plains somewhere that could offer the group to leave it alone for another so many years, or just turn around and say you couldn't find me? Potentially, even if the group would never take it, these are things that dragon would try and offer. And so it only makes sense that you could have something that the dragon would want to offer the group to try and say, hey, don't attack me, take this instead, and let's just call it even. Now, I've done up as a stat block for Ashardalon, and the Ashardalon fight goes into it. Quite a hefty big fight. And then the idea is you're only going to give them a couple rounds as the dragon falls and lays there before there's a bit of a twitching and something happened. You could reset initiative counts. You could have a couple of rounds of hit points coming back to them if you feel they need it before Amat then bursts out of Ashardalon's chest, and then if the fight's back on again. So doesn't have to go straight into it. Could have a few rounds. Consider it. But yeah, definitely something to add in there is when Amat comes out, and then continues the fight to stop them taking a long or short rest in between. So before we wrap this thing up, we're probably going to talk about a few things. So number one, I haven't talked about leveling up yet. If you're using XP, go for XP. But as a rough guide, and if you're using milestone experience, the group start at level 18 for this adventure and should be 19 no later than arriving at the positive energy plane. By the time they do all their thing through the material plane or through the planes, they should hit level 19. By the time they go through everything on the positive energy plane here, they should be 20 before they go in and fight Ashardalon. You really should. They really need to be 20 because they've earned it. They've played this game for such a long time. This is the point of this adventure, is to be a level 20 character. And then if you take Epic on after this, go for it. Give them epic levels after this. It should be just about the end of the campaign, except for a few things we could go on with. But if you take them to level 20, get them to level 20, and then they can go in and fight as a level 20 character, because some of them get their abilities all the way up to level 20, go for it. This is what this fight's meant to be. And if they just outshine, then they just outshine. That's the point of being level 20. And that's what they're going to want, to be powerful level 20 characters. As for a couple other things, there is a Deviant art page. This fella's been doing wonderful artwork where he's done color maps, and I'll just throw a couple up now. He's done color maps of both the Bastion, the fight at Echo, the Desayeus' prison, the Guild of Sleep, the Church of the Elements, and Cathezar's Abode. So the major places you're going to go, this bloke here, I'm going to attempt his name, is Duen13. He's done some wonderful maps, and for some of the other adventures that these third ed ones are, such as Heart of Night, Fang Spire, Deep Horizon, Lord of the Iron Fortress, some great little adventures. So check this bloke out. I've already spoke to him, got permission to link him in here, and he's quite happy to have his stuff publicised. I'm also going to chuck down there a couple of affiliate links for where you can collect this adventure on the DM's Guild and anywhere else I can find that I can link this adventure through to you, so you guys can get it at no extra cost to yourselves and throw a little thank you my way. And lastly, if you've managed to stay this long and you've enjoyed this and you think this is something for you, and I've offered you some good advice on how to rejig this adventure, then please like and comment something for me there, and even subscribe if you feel like you want to continue on. I'm going to keep doing adventure reviews, race and species reviews, all that sort of stuff, and play some games. So if you like D&D and just like what I'm doing here, please subscribe and notify. Well, thanks heaps for hanging around this long. I really appreciate it. I know these are long videos, but I really feel like I've got to do a little bit more than just say it was a good adventure with how it was laid out. Like, I want to go into it and tell you how to make these adventures better. So thanks for hanging with me this long, and I'll catch you next time. See ya. Hey, are you thinking you're running Bastion and Broken Souls now? Well, maybe you should check out the 2 videos that I've got linked below. One is a playlist series of me doing a quick retelling of my group's adventures, going through this adventure and see the silliness they got up to. The other one is a player discussion after we played the game, where we all decided and discussed what we liked about the adventure and what went well. Check those out if you're after a little bit more feedback on this adventure.